and we're ready as well. I call to order a regular meeting of the Watchung Borough School District Board of Education on October 26, 2023 at 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Public Meeting Act. And the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung, at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being live streamed on the district's website, where a recording of the meeting also will be posted. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents, guardians whose children may be included in the image. May I please have a roll call?
Mr. Buccarelli, absent. Mr. Frage? Here. Mr. Gonzalez, absent. Mrs. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Ingracia?
Here.
Mrs. Jewett? Here. Mr. Morales?
Here.
Mrs. Murad?
Here.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Here.
Can I have a motion to go into executive session? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Mrs. Rogers, can you please read the reason for going into executive session?
A matter rendered confidential by federal or state law, student matters. In addition, a matter involving the purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property with public funds. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Executive session, whereas the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:411, permits the Board of Education to meet in closed session to discuss certain matters now, thereafter, be it a matter rendered confidential by federal, state law, student matters. In addition, a matter involving the purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property with public funds. Further resolved, the minutes of this closed session be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, we're going to move on to superintendent remarks.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. While we don't have a student presentation this evening, I'm going to direct your view up here to the screen. We have an awful lot to share tonight about the schools and our school community. We have been working really hard. We've been busy trying to share all the wonderful things that are happening in our schools and the community. And you're going to see some of how we started the school year up on the screen. Lots of different events. We'll continue what I hope will be even more sharing at meetings in public, on social media. You see our teachers in professional learning. You see the board members welcoming our students, the PTO Food Truck Festival, the Library Card Initiative, and rock painting. All wonderful things that people don't really get to talk about in the schools. Tonight, we also, in addition to all of this great stuff that you see up there, we are going to be sharing lots of stories tonight. And our first good news story of the evening, well, it's congratulations to her, but our loss, is the announcement of the retirement of library media specialist Tricia Keene. After 24 years in the district, she's retiring. I've gotten to know Tricia just a little bit as we started the school year through colleagues in common, her role in the Education Association, and most recently while we've been working with the architects to plan for and to give feedback for the referendum on the library learning commons space. She is a wonderful resource, and she is going to be greatly missed. Let me just read the resolution for the record. Whereas Patricia Keene has been employed from September 1999 as a library media specialist, and whereas Patricia Keene exemplified expertise, commitment, and professionalism in her duties, now therefore be it resolved, the Watchung Borough School District and Board of Education recognize Patricia Keene's retirement effective February 29th, 2024, and extend to her congratulations and best wishes for a happy, healthy, enjoyable retirement. She will truly be missed. Next up, I want to introduce our principal of Bayberry School, Denise Fickner. She is going to give the principal's report for Bayberry and Valley View tonight. Thanks, Denise.
Sure. All right. Good evening, everyone. I see some of our pictures. Some of these are from today.
I know. Look at how
Good
good
for
I
you.
was.
Yeah, those are all on my Twitter if anybody wants to check them out. All right, so I'll begin. The first week of October was celebrated with the week of respect, with spirit activities at both schools to promote a positive school climate and respect throughout our schools. Bayberry students enjoyed a Kind Minds Assembly brought to us through a partnership with the Kimberly Ann Wilson Foundation. This foundation brings social emotional programs and services. Is this
We
working?
lost you.
Okay.
Everybody. No, I'm
There it
still
is.
here. Do you want this one?
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
No, there you are.
Okay. This foundation brings social emotional programs and services to schools, and they also donated classroom fidget kits to help our students refocus and de-stress. I'd like to thank Ms. Deegan for bringing us this foundation. It's a good friend of hers, and it's been really great to form that partnership. Valley View students worked in their Mountaineer Monday groups on celebrating their individual strengths and created positive affirmations to support one another. On October 9th, the staff participated in a professional development day. Teachers worked in their professional learning communities to analyze assessment data, develop professional development plans, set growth goals, and explore strategies for meeting the needs of diverse learners. Bayberry celebrated Fire Prevention Week with a fire safety assembly and a poster contest by Watchung Fire Department. The poster contest, this was the first year they brought that back, and it was great to see all of the different posters. The winners were honored at the fire department on October 15th. And of course, our kindergartners enjoyed a tour of the fire truck. Thank you to Mr. Graves for all of his hard work in organizing these events. The student council election was held on October 18th at Valley View. We had 7 students run for various board positions. Our new student council board comprises our treasurer, Victoria Scomiel, secretary, Tommy Sharkey, vice president, Omesh Kolan, and president, Gavin Farley. Congratulations to all of our student candidates and winners. We celebrated Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd, and it's going through the 31st with, again, spirit activities and messages of living a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. We had a lot of twins today. We had Twin Day at Bayberry, some of those pictures. That was a lot of fun. Bayberry students and staff are in a heated competition for the annual Trunk or Treat Candy War. The class with the most candy will be announced tomorrow, and WEF will provide an ice cream party to the winning class. Yesterday, our kindergartners enjoyed a special treat when Home Depot visited with their mascot, Homer. Those were pictures that you saw earlier. Yeah, excuse me. Over 60 pumpkins, painting supplies, Home Depot aprons were donated for a pumpkin painting project. And after the craft, students enjoyed a dance party with Homer. Yes, I mean, kindergartners and dancing, like they have no fear of dancing, and they were so fun. It was a great way to start the day, for sure. Halloween will be celebrated on Tuesday, October 31st. Bayberry students will march in the Halloween parade and celebrate with parties. Valley View students are invited to celebrate the day by dressing in costume and engaging in student council's Halloween booths. We are looking forward to having a spectacular time. Now, finally, the iReady diagnostic score reports have been shared through the Genesis Parent Portal. We just wanted to show you an example of that report, what you can expect for some of our new parents. So this is the score report. This is a report from the end of the school year. So right now, obviously, you'll just see the one blue bar for the first diagnostic. And it gives you information as a parent where your child placed, what skill areas they need improvement. So it gives you the overall score. And then on the right, it breaks it down by domain and tells you a little bit more about where they're at in each domain. And then the next part, this is all actually one page, but I just broke it up. And then it gives you a little more information on the different terms on the report and tells you what the scale scores mean and the national norms. And then on the second page of the report, it actually, again, gives you more detail on the skill areas and not only tells you where your child is, but what they're ready for next. So it will tell you they need reinforcement in a certain area, or they can have extension in a different area. So it's a lot. And then it gives you, if you look closely, there is a green arrow. And the green arrow it will tell you that they have had improvement from the prior tests. So you won't see those arrows in this first score report. Obviously, you will see it at the end if there was improvement. And the teachers get a more detailed look at this, but this is for families, and it's a great thing for you to talk about at conferences, which we have coming up at Bayberry shortly. All right. And then this, I just put the link there in case, would you mind just clicking on that, Aaron? And this is a link that we put out when we send the letters out to tell everybody that the reports are there. It just gives you more information for parents if you need it. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise, and thanks for going through that. I don't know about anybody else. iReady was new to me. We used a different assessment tool previously in my previous district, and I was just fascinated by how you could see the growth, number one, but number two, that there were so many resources that parents could use with their children at home. So truly, I appreciate you going through that. Thank you so much. Next on our agenda, we have a new report. It's a new report on our agenda, but a really important one. I hope that we'll be able to continue it each month. Mrs. Patricia Rogers, Patty. has been doing an amazing job in the business office. She is also managing transportation. She is also managing the referendum. A little bit busy and crazy, but again, some wonderful good news stories here. And we thought you'd like to hear directly from Patty instead of me reporting. So here you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Glazer. Just a brief update from the finance side. We did change our general account. I was able to work with Citizens Bank to get our interest rate up from what was at only 1.25% to 4%. So that should make us some additional money, help us on the referendums, on the revenue side. I'm also going to briefly give you an update on transportation. It's consistent at this point, probably not where everyone wants it to be, but it is consistent nonetheless. So at this point, the decision has to be made whether or not we're going to consolidate stops and eliminate cul-de-sacs. That is our only option based on, again, information from the consultants from the state to lengthen or shorten the time of the routes. So the idea is that we are going to put out a survey to parents so that they can vote, if you will, and decide if they, by route, to decide if they're willing to give up their cul-de-sac or to consolidate their stop in order to save some time on the routes. And then a decision will be made from there. But at the very least, again, the routes are consistent, the times, children are getting to school on time. It's really just the back end at Bayberry because of the bell time between Valley View's let out and Bayberry's let out is only a half hour, and most of the routes are about 40 to 50 minutes long. So the last thing I wanted to do is give you an update on the referendum. I promise I won't steal any of Mr. Ingracia's thunder about the referendum. Mine is just specifically to the website. We have made some updates to the website. You can see in order to access it, Aaron is showing us, you can either get it from the very top there, there's a section, or in the center, there's also a referendum link. Once you enter into that, you can then see that there is an update on the left-hand side that is more recent, October, up at the top there, October 2023. You can click on that and go in and see, again, what the specifics are. But there's also some pictures. That's actually the fun part of the update. So you can see some of the projects, the sidewalks, the ADA handrails. That's an example of the casework that was done in one of the classrooms at Bayberry. So, and then also back from the main page, there's another opportunity to see additional pictures by clicking on any one of the 9 boxes that are broken out by project. You can see there's information as well as pictures below that pertain specifically to that part of the scope of the project, which can also be found on the main page if you wanted to get an idea where to find the actual list of projects themselves. Down on the bottom there is that's been on this isn't updated, but just so you can get an idea of what the actual projects were, how they were broken out. As one slide may look familiar to you, and that corresponds with the 9 boxes. Now, this list, it's hard to see it, of course, but when you get the opportunity at home, it lists the 9 different, whether it's site work, casework, there you go. So those boxes correspond to the original questions and what you voted on. So, and this is a chance for you to go and look and see some of the pictures and get an idea of the update, which, again, Mr. Ingracia will give you more specifics on. But the website has been updated with some wonderful pictures, and we're moving forward. Majority of the work is still scheduled for this summer, but we have the security film that's next in line right now that's going to be starting. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Patty. And if you look at the security tab, there is actually a video of the use of the film. That is the next thing that's coming. And again, as Patty said, in each one of these tabs, there's also a timeline. Best as we know for the projects, so you'll have that. In addition, I hope you'll notice some new safety and security protocols if you're entering our buildings or using the facilities after hours. This includes gating off the spaces that aren't in use to secure the remainder of the buildings. We've also, just as far as this goes, been meeting with the administration and staff for their input on the referendum projects. This includes the casework in the classrooms. It looks at the needs for updated child study team room space here at Valley View and the renovations in the art and library learning common spaces. These sessions for me, coming in new and just learning the projects and talking to the teachers and principals, have been so helpful, so productive. And again, this level of communication and feedback, I hope will help all of us meet the expectations for the referendum projects. So again, very exciting for all of us. And this leads us into our presentation this evening, also out of the business office, from Mr. Ernie Turner. He's our consultant from Summit Management Solutions. Mr. Turner, you probably recognize him, has been working in the Watchung Borough School District as a consultant for at least, 6 years? At least 6 years. More?
Maybe more.
Maybe more, on issues of finance, including the budget and the referendum. Tonight's presentation is specific to the fiscal year 24 budget and the resolutions on tonight's agenda. So, Ernie, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Okay. All right, just to give a little background of myself, my name is Ernie Turner, and I'm 1 month shy of having 40 years experience working as a school business administrator and working in school business offices. Prior to that, I worked in corporate accounting. I used to teach the classes for school finance and accounting in my experience in the past. And in my retirement, I've provided consulting services for 85 school districts in the state of New Jersey. So I've been around for quite a while. And if you remember me, I was here in Watchung about 5-6 years ago as well, too, during a difficult time that the district was going through back then. But part of what I'm going to present to you tonight, I spoke in a public session 6 years ago, expressing my concerns about the financial foundation for the district at that time. All right, and that's going to lead us to this point here in time now, because my concerns back then are my concerns right now. And I want to express to you and explain to you exactly what I mean and why this needs to be taken very seriously, because it has a direct effect on the operation of your school district and on your ability to provide a successful environment for your students. All right, so going into this, if you would, next slide, please. The financial status of the district. Over several years, the Board of Education has tried to maintain a cost-conscious approach to increases in the tax levy. I'm aware of that because I've been part of a number of those discussions about the fact that the concern in the community is for how much you're paying in taxes. That concern is shared by probably just about everyone in New Jersey. But this was always a concern, and it's a legitimate concern. We always have to be cost conscious. We always have to find efficiencies. We always have to find a better way to do things. All right, that's really an emphasis that's been put upon me in my experience in working in business offices, because you always have to respect the people who have to write the checks. All right, that's just part of being conscientious and trying to be aware of the concerns of the community. As a result, increases in mandated and contractual expenses, as well as the loss of federal grant funds, has created stress on the financial operations of the district. Okay, so over the past few years, as you know, we all went through a pandemic. All right, so there were things that occurred during that pandemic that actually delayed a situation that we're addressing tonight. What we're talking about tonight, if the pandemic didn't occur, we would have been talking about this 3 years ago. All right, and I'll explain to you why. Going forward, the district must establish a stable financial foundation now and into the future. All right, so if you were given the task of building a house, the first thing you would have to do is build a foundation. All right, and that foundation would have to be strong enough to be able to support the structure that you're building upon it. The finances of the school district are really that foundation of the house that you're trying to build. All right, so this is the most important thing for any success that you're going to have in your school district, is to be able to have that stable and strong foundation from a financial standpoint. Next slide, please. Please excuse my back. As I mentioned, we would be having this discussion 3 years ago if we didn't go through a pandemic. And what wound up happening as a result of the COVID pandemic, the district received a significant amount of money in federal funding. And this is the list of the different types of federal funding, totaling $659,000 that the district received. And then also, too, there were local grants and private donations that occurred during that time that don't exist now as well, too. So this actually assisted the district during that critical time, during the pandemic, from a financial standpoint. All right, the district actually received somewhat of a benefit because of this additional funding that the district received. Next slide, please. In any school district, you have mandated expenses, all right? And those mandated expenses are either mandated by law or contractual obligations. So when you put together a school district budget, approximately 85% of that budget is mandated, all right? You have no choice. You have to pay that bill, all right? So as a result, over the past years, and what we're talking about right now, and the situation that we're talking about right now, didn't happen yesterday, it didn't happen a year ago, it didn't happen 3 years ago. It happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, all right? Because this is an accumulation of occurrences and events over a long period of time that has led to this point in time, all right? So this wasn't a recent occurrence. It's been something that has been accumulating over a long period of time. So the increase in mandated expenses, all right, it was $800,000 in staffing.
Most people have no idea what you're referring to, what the issue is. I think we need to communicate why you're giving this
Oh,
presentation.
I will get there.
Okay.
Yeah, I will get there. I practice a lot.
I know you do. I'm just looking at our audience, like,
Okay.
dollars.
Well, any questions? I'll open it to questions. It could be
No,
that.
no, keep going.
Casual,
You're going to get
all right.
to it, Ernie. Don't-
Okay, I'll get to it. All right. So we're looking at staffing requirements. Again, these are mandated staffing requirements in the school district. There were 4 employees that were not on the position control roster. All right, the school resource officer was not budgeted. Outsourced staff not budgeted due to a lower prior year actual, and that was an direct effect of the COVID pandemic as well, too. Transportation, again, this is a contractual obligation. There's an increase of $75,000 in transportation costs. The health benefits in the school district, the actual premiums wound up being higher than what was budgeted. Legal fees for the district wound up being more than what was anticipated. Insurance, even though the district participates in a JIF, which is a joint insurance fund, you get the benefit of being in a JIF, which is very, very cost effective, still realized an increase higher than what was anticipated. And then in technology, all right, these are Chromebooks and iPads, all right, that previously had been funded through another source that now has to be absorbed in the school district budget. So what wound up happening as a result of this is that there was a potential shortfall of $1.1 million in the budget. Due to the hard work of your business administrator, she sharpened her pencil and went through the entire budget line by line and found where she was able to find surplus money in the account lines to be able to try and offset the potential shortfall. And as a result, she was able to reduce that $1.1 million shortfall down to $776,000. Still a big number. All right, so that's the hole in the budget for right now. Next slide, please. Is it working?
Try the one next to you.
Hello. I just had a question about, I'm sorry, it's on slide 3 with the local grants and the private donations. There's no dollar amount there. Is there any kind of estimate as to how much those were?
It was a couple $100,000.
And then when Patty reviewed the discretionary accounts and reduced it, how does that directly impact the district with us reducing those accounts for the school year? Because I know we talked about that. So how does that affect our students, our teachers, and everyone else?
Yeah, it will be very restrictive. And as a result, the budget will have to be monitored very, very closely and managed throughout the year. So as a result, these were all in discretionary account lines, which again only amounts to 15% of the budget. But those were really the only areas that could be looked at and addressed. Because again, anything that was mandated, anything that's contractual, you really have no choice. You know, you can't decide to pay something different if the law requires it, or if it's a contractual obligation.
So for example, we're saying if we have a certain amount of paper that we purchased this year and we run out of that paper, we have no money to purchase any more paper, to make it simple. Am I right?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that it would have to be managed very, very closely. All right. In other words, in the past, if you were able to be a little bit more efficient in the management of your discretionary expenses, now's the time to do it. And if you're able to do that and manage it carefully throughout the year, it's not a matter of like you can't have any more paper because there's no more money. It's a matter that you have to be very careful on how you use the paper that you have. So it's not a you know, all or nothing kind of thing. It just has to be managed properly.
So kind of like creating rations.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. Yes, it is. Okay. You're welcome. Okay, confronting financial challenges. Mandated and contractual expenses have increased beyond the 2% cap to the extent that they exceed the district's ability to absorb these cost increases. 2% on the tax levy doesn't mean 2% on your total budget. It means just 2% on your tax levy. And your tax levy is about 90% of your total budget, but there's still 10% that doesn't increase during the course of the year. So your overall budget, if your overall budget increased 2%, your 2% tax levy does not cover that. All right? So you wind up falling behind a little bit more every year. And especially now in this environment with the cost of inflation, with things going up in price, that gap widens more and more each year. The district must address the reality of these additional mandated expenses and create a sound financial foundation to address these issues for the current and future years. All right, so what we're talking about here tonight and the challenge that the district is facing right now is not just for this year, it's in the future as well too. I know when I taught the course on school finance and accounting, we talked about budgeting. I never said that you just budget for 1 year. You never do that, all right? Because you budget for that 1 year, it has an effect on every other budget that follows that year. So you're budgeting in the current year and for every year that follows. And that's what needs to be done. That's what you have to look at, all right? And I'll explain more about that as we go through this. COVID bounce. Situation delayed for 3 years due to the funding of COVID pandemic issues and cost savings related to the pandemic. Not only did the district receive federal funding, but during the COVID pandemic, when we had to shut down, there was less cost for maintaining the buildings. You didn't pay as much in electricity, you didn't pay as much in heating costs, and there were savings. And an auditor told me that during that time period, districts were actually realizing a little bit more in a surplus each year, and they called it the COVID bounce. All right, that was the term that they used. So that helped delay the situation that we're talking about tonight. Next slide, please. Recommendations, all right? You never present a problem without presenting a solution or more than one solution. So the recommendations to address the situation that we're talking about is that we're have already put together budget transfers from accounts with available funds to accounts that need funds. Finance technology needs in the amount of $112,481 through a 4-year lease purchase, with the first payment being due in August of 2024, which is the next fiscal year. So it doesn't hit this fiscal year. And then adopt a budget that recognizes additional revenues as follows. Extraordinary aid. Extraordinary aid is additional special education aid that the district applies for and receives each year. And based on the application that was submitted in last May, we have $275,921 that we can appropriate in the 23-24 year. In addition, we also receive non-public transportation aid in the amount of $10,608. We have additional bond interest that can be appropriated of $377,644. And that bond interest is from the referendum, all right? And when the bonds were sold, all right, a New Jersey asset rebate management account, which public school districts are eligible to participate in, was opened, and all of those bond proceeds, all right, were invested in the NJ ARM account. And it's about 5.2% is the return that the district is getting on that right now. So we've gotten legal opinions that have said that that bond interest from the investment in the NJ ARM account from the bond proceeds is eligible to be used in the general current expense budget. And so we have an additional $377,000 which we can use in this year. So the total additional revenue is $664,173. So taking the $664,000 plus the $112,000, that closes the gap of $776,000. All right, so that's how we're going to do it. That's the recommendation that's being made tonight to be able to close that gap. And then it also requires careful management of the budget for the remainder of the year. In other words, every purchase order, every penny that's going to be that's going to pass through the budget has to be watched very, very closely. It's going to be a big challenge, no question about that. Next slide, please. I want to remind everybody that this is a one-time solution for the 23-24 fiscal year only, all right? So this is only a one-time solution. It will not have an effect on taxes this year. It won't affect your taxes at all for this year. And this method and this proposal that's being put forward has been approved by the board-appointed auditor and also by the Executive County School Business Administrator. All right, so the Department of Education has given their approval, as well as the board auditor, and the outlook now, going forward, is that we need to address these issues while developing the fiscal year 25 budget. All right, so work has already started on budget development for the next budget cycle. A lot of hard decisions are going to have to be made, but it's better to start early rather than later and really start to put this together so that, like every aspect, every opportunity can be considered in order to be able to, again, build that firm financial foundation that you need There's no question. Nobody can turn their back on that. That has to be done, all right? And I want to see that happen because that'll have an effect on every other budget going out. And you don't want to be back here a year from now or next year after that talking about the same things. You don't want to do that. You want to fix it right, and then have it put into place so that every year after that, you can concentrate on other things to enhance your school district. I think that really should be the priority. Okay? So that is my presentation.
Thank you, Ernie. Hello, there you go. Thanks, Ernie. And I appreciate your calm demeanor. As you can imagine, while we were meeting in committees and asking questions as a board and administration, perhaps the conversations were a little bit more dramatic. And I'm going to say with good reason. I will also say that Patty, I know Ernie gave her a shout out, but the amount of time to go through every line, to do that analysis, to find out exactly what we could transfer to make it to the end of this school year, I can't even tell you the time and effort that went into that. And yes, this is a one-time solution for this year. And yes, we have already started working on next year now that Patty is going to develop a budget and not inherit a budget. And as Ernie said, this is years in the making. Nobody at this table, you know, can go back in time. We can only look forward. Do you want questions now or wait for public comment?
Let's wait for public comment.
All right, and we're going to wait for the questions until the public comment. I'm just going to keep going then with my statements for now. So in addition to the other stories we've shared, it was also a great week in the district this week. We had a luncheon to celebrate Ricky, the custodial maintenance staff, and all of our staff like Aaron somewhere in that back room, and Denise and Karen and our secretaries and office staff that worked weekends and holidays over the summer on the referendum and to prepare the schools for the new year. Some of us were also able to attend meaningful workshops at the New Jersey School Boards Conference. I think you'll hear more about that from our board members. And before my concluding comments tonight, I do want to remind everybody that the district is closed Thursday, November 9th and Friday, November 10th for the New Jersey Teachers Convention. And finally, it's been just about 3 weeks as the world continues to pray for the release of all the hostages taken from Israel by Hamas, for the many lives tragically lost in unspeakable acts of anti-Semitic terrorism, and for a resolution to the escalating humanitarian crisis that is continuing to unfold in Gaza. I've only been a part of the Watchung Borough community for a short time. I have been moved in so many ways by how the community has demonstrated their values of compassion, care, and inclusion. I'm not sure if you know, but we have more than 22 languages and even more countries of origin represented in Watchung. And our strength as a school community comes from our ability to understand and respect a diversity of ideas, beliefs, and backgrounds, and our collective ability to navigate these more than challenging times together as a community and to come together as a community of one. I know that we're going to continue to stand together in unity and peace and respect, and we're going to continue to be vigilant in identifying and speaking out against any anti-Semitism, anti-Arab racism, Islamophobia, or other bias in our community and worldwide. Tomorrow evening at 5 p.m., there will be an interfaith prayer service for peace here in Watchung. I know people have gone far and wide, but here at St. Mary's Church, all are invited to join in a service of unity and healing. Monsignor Benwell and spiritual leaders from Christian, Jewish, Islamic, and Hindu communities will be attending, again, offering up that prayer for peace. It's important to stand together and continue to speak out, and I am so proud and grateful for my decision to join a community that believes in that and allows it to happen. Thank you.
Dr. Glazer, the enrollment report as well.
Well, there's really, I mean, if you look at the comparison, this year compared to this time last year, we have 10 more students. They're distributed amongst the grades differently. I think you'll hear in the committee reports and liaison reports about our regionalization meeting, and there is a piece of that report that I think will also apply to the enrollment.
Thank you. We're going to move on to committee reports. Mr. Gonzalez, can you please give the Human Resource Committee report?
Yes. The HR committee met on Thursday, October 19th. The start time was 4:08 and it ended at 5:02. Members Ms. O'Donnell and Dr. Glazer and I discussed Ernie Turner's budget presentation, and an opportunity of questions and clarifications were provided. The business administration, Dr. Glazer explained that Donna Irapino, Executive Secretary and Business Administrator, has resigned. Donna is responsible for payroll, transportation, health and benefits administration. We wish her well in her future endeavors. We are actively interviewing candidates for this position. We're to approve the new job title for district accountant. We're to approve the new job description for district accountant. Transfer Deborah Chu, current district bookkeeper, to a new position if approved. All are in tonight's agenda. The committee discussed the sick days donated by a teacher for critical ill colleague that we have. This is an agenda in tonight's approval. Dr. Glazer, would you mind a few words about this?
Sure. So, among our other amazing community stories and responding to difficult situations, we have a staff member who is catastrophically ill. He started the school year with us. It was my great pleasure to meet him the first day of school, and within a week he was already undergoing chemotherapy for advanced treatment of his illness. Obviously, we start a new school year. We don't have that many sick days, personal days, opportunities to build those. And I spoke to the staff member and his wife. I called them. I'm gonna cry myself. The tissues are ready. But I did speak with them, and the hardship of that on top of the actual treatments really moved me, moved all of us. We had staff members that came forward and asked if they could donate their own sick days to further his time on benefits and time with salary. I brought it to the Board of Education, and again, couldn't be more proud that every member of this board said whatever it takes. And we wrote a letter to the staff. The response was overwhelming. People donated a day, 5 days, 15 days, 20 days, enough days that this staff member will be able to undergo treatment without having his salary or benefits interrupted. The most beautiful letters that you can imagine, and offers of donating even more days when those run out. I have never seen anything like the overwhelming response. Again, I've spoken to the staff member and his wife a number of times. He was actually hoping to be here tonight. That's why I'm speaking. And thank his colleagues and thank the Board of Education directly for giving that opportunity. Unfortunately, the side effects from his treatment have kept him from joining us tonight.
But please know, it is with a grateful heart that he will accept the sick days. And you should know, this is the part that all he has said to me every time, please tell everybody I'll be back. My whole reason for fighting is to come back and work with my student and to be with all of these people who have shown such love and given me such hope. So on behalf of him and his family, I thank you all, staff, board, and we wish you positive, healing energy. We're sending you with extra prayers tonight and a boost up, and we hope we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Finish your report.
That will conclude my report.
As you can tell, we've had many conversations, and it's truly heartwarming to just see the staff and the community come together in support of each other. And that truly transcends just what Watchung is about and what our community can do. Mr. Ingracia, can you please give the operations and finance report?
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Mr. Turner for his presentation tonight, and also all of his efforts along with the administration working through some of these issues. And I appreciate the transparency of the presentation. There's also on the agenda, item C1 provides some more information about the appropriations that will be, as we readopt this budget for the financial year 2024. And as mentioned, the 2025 budget preparations begin internally and will be discussed publicly at the February, March, and April 2024 Board of Education meetings. And the approval of the financial year 25 budget will then take place at the May 2024 Board of Education meeting. We had our Operations Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday, October 17th, and the budget discussion that was covered in this presentation today. And then moving on to the referendum projects update, we have bid package number 1, it's the Bayberry toilet rooms, and bid package number 2, the Valley View interiors. Those will be advertised November 6th. Bid packages 5 and 6, the Bayberry and Valley View HVAC scope of work has been advertised, and the bid opening is scheduled for November 7th. These packages include the HVAC upgrade to air conditioning in the Bayberry and Valley View gyms, and the structural reinforcement work and painting of the ceiling and ductwork is included in these bid packages also. Bid package number 3 for the Bayberry and Valley View roofing work is being prepared. There's additional coordination required to remove and reinstall the Bayberry solar panels, so working through those issues. The attack-resistant window security film, the material is expected to be delivered by the end of this month, and potential start date in early November. The casework, Bayberry installation is complete, and a punch list of corrective work has been provided to the supplier installer. Valley View installation was scheduled to begin the week of October 23rd. For the art room expansion and renovation, a new rooftop unit will be included in the design to accommodate the new loads as calculated by the mechanical engineer. The outdoor courtyard and field improvements, surveyor has been on site and will be providing finalized drawings that will help in the ongoing design of those spaces. And we continue to have, in addition to Mr. Turner and DRG Architects, we also had Legacy Construction Management joining us at this meeting. And as a consultant and owner's rep, they will review bid packages, bid forms, and remaining items on the referendum project list. They'll provide procurement and pre-construction consultation services as needed to keep the district in the best possible position during the process, and then they're planning to provide an on-site presence as needed throughout the completion of the work. The most intensive on-site project management support is expected to be during the summer of 2024. We also, Dr. Glazer already mentioned some of the building safety and security discussion that we had. And there are a few other items on tonight's agenda that were introduced by the administration after the committee meeting. So you'll see some things that were not in the meeting minutes, but were later brought forward. And so there's a few items on there, C5, C6, C12, C13, C14, and C15. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Jouette, can you please give the curriculum committee report?
Curriculum Committee met on Tuesday, October 17th at 4 p.m. in person in the board conference room. I was there, Mrs. Harvey, Mrs. O'Donnell, Board President Amber Morad did come later on, and Dr. Glazer was there as our administrator, and our guest speaker was Ernie Turner. Ernie Turner's budget presentation was discussed, and an opportunity for questions and clarification was provided. The NJSLA student testing reports were sent to parents electronically. A public presentation on the district scores will be done at the November 14th board meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Morales, can I please have a policy committee report?
The policy meeting was October 19th. Ms. Jouette, Ms. Harvey, Dr. Glazer, and I were present. It was an in-person meeting at the board conference room that lasted for about an hour, starting at 5:15 p.m. The first thing we discussed, the committee members, along with Dr. Glazer, had a depth and detailed conversation about the budget presentation to be submitted by Ernie Turner, which was presented today. We discussed policy 1511, Board of Education website accessibility. The policy needs to be updated with a website accessibility coordinator. Dr. Glazer recommends the board designate Aaron Lenovich as website accessibility coordinator. He is currently fulfilling this role. We also discussed policies and regulations that are to be abolished. Policy and Regulation 3432, which is the old sick leave policy, and policy 4442 are to be abolished. These policies were replaced with the new sick leave policy and regulation, Guide 1642.01, as mandated by the state and passed at a previous meeting. Policies 5460.02, the Bridge Year Pilot Program, 8450, which is a school nutrition program, 8550, which is meal charges and outstanding food service bill, and 1524, the school leadership councils, were also discussed as advised by Strauss-Esme. However, these policies were inapplicable to our school district.
On Monday, October 16th, we had our regionalization study meeting. Can you please, Mr. Farage, can you please give an update?
So on Monday, October 16th, 2023, representatives from Watchung Hills, the Watchung School District, and Greenbrook all had their second meeting in regards to a regionalization study. Representatives from Rowan University Consulting Group also joined in on this meeting in order to guide our districts in applying for a LEAP grant, which would cover the cost of this feasibility study. The purpose of the study is to determine the educational and cost benefits to districts in regard to regionalization. There was also recognition that each school district has different demographics, such as population growth. So a demographic study is also being strongly considered as well. There was also a discussion of a steering committee, which would include staff, school boards, parents, community members, and elected officials in order to help guide the feasibility study based on community comments and its merits. As of now, the next meeting time has not been set.
Thank you. Moving on to board liaison reports, the legislative liaison report. I can actually give one of those. You do? Okay, good. So please, I'll let you start first.
So on October 11th, 2023, the New Jersey Department of Education announced a new legislation regarding substitutes. There's been increased needs for qualified substitute teachers in many school districts, so the Department of Education adopted a revised regulation reducing the minimum number of credits completed at an accredited college or university from 60 to 30 for an individual to qualify for a substitute credential. In doing so, the state expects an increase in qualified substitutes to temporarily fill vacancies.
Thank you. So new education laws that are up and coming are, one is certification fees, where it waives certification and credentials fees for teachers for 1 year. The second one is hiring retirees to extend flexibility to hire retired teachers for an additional year. Student health, where it's social media impact, which establishes a commission to study effects on adolescents of social media usage in and out of school. Medicaid funding for health services, which requires Medicaid reimbursement for covered behavioral health services provided by local education agency to students who are eligible for Medicaid benefits. Sick leave expansion, suicide prevention, and also ticket sales. And so these are the conversations and these are laws that are currently being looked at by the legislation. And let's move on to Somerset County Educational Services Commission. There are no reports right now, but I do have one for the County School Boards Association. I've had a lot of work since last meeting. I was actually able to attend I was not able to attend the Somerset County board meeting, but I did attend the Union and Essex and Bergen County, and all of them had different topics that they were talking about. One was Somerset County actually had a really good one, and it was for their board member ethics and best practices. Union County had government relations, and then the other two topics were financial health and I want to say just give me 1 second, I'll pull it up right now. It was Ocean County, and there was about just student and HIB policies, and it was really informative. I will forward all of those updates to all the board members once I have the opportunity. I'd like to move on to community engagement at this time. A school board association, I don't have an update for that. But for community engagement, may I please have somebody from PTO?
Good evening, everyone. So on October 11th, we had a Dine to Donate with Cafe Noon in conjunction with an in-person PTO meeting at the same time. So thank you to everyone that participated in our Dine to Donate. On October 13th, we had a Mom's Night Out at Darby Road. I want to thank again all of the owner and the executive chef at Darby Road, as they are continuously and generously donating all of the ice cream and Italian ice for our sweet treats sales at Bayberry. So we thank them very much for that. The 8th grade committee is doing pretzel sales here at Valley View every other Friday. So if you have a student at Valley View, send them with $2 or $3 if they want a plain or a cinnamon pretzel every other Friday, as they are raising money for their 8th grade festivities at the end of the year. We are getting ready for our 2nd annual Fall Fest here at Valley View. We're having the dance in conjunction with the Student Council. It will run on November 17th. The 5th and 6th grade will have an hour and a half together, and then the 7th and 8th grade will have their time together, and that's on November 17th. The Student Council is going to be selling tickets here in the APR, so students can buy their tickets there. We have a Dine to Donate coming up with Merinos on November 7th. We have a blanket fundraiser going on. We have a fleece blanket for sale on the website. It has our new logo on it. It's super soft and super cozy, so go ahead and order one if you would like to. We're going to order some extras, so if people want to buy one later, you are welcome to do that as well. We have our Bayberry yearbooks already for sale, so if you just want to buy it now so you don't have to think about it later. If you buy by October 31st, you do get 10% off. We are looking forward already and it's a lot of work to put on, but we are getting ready for our holiday boutique. I believe we have the date set for December 1st. It's going to be very similar to last year, where we have one big time in the evening here at Valley View. We have a couple people that have been working on the Holiday Boutique for many, many years now. I believe she's been doing it almost since I've even been in the school for 5 years, I think. She does a great job, Rasha. She's putting it together, getting all the vendors together. So it'll be a great time. We're also looking forward to, we're doing our movie fundraiser again at Cinemark. We are waiting to tell you what movie it is because we have a very cute invite for it, so I don't want to spoil the surprise. And last but not least, we always need more volunteers. So if you have time to come in, if you have we have people, grandparents coming in to volunteer. If you can volunteer at either of the schools, even for an hour once a month, it's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anybody from WEF here?
Hi, Angela Mealy from WEF, Hill Hollow Road in Watchung. And I am here to do a plug for our trunk or treat, which you've already heard about. And you've probably seen our flyers around town, so we're hoping to see you all there. It's really a blast, and it's something that the kids all look forward to. And it is not done in a vacuum. I want to thank Principal Fickner and her team at Bayberry. They've been great. Deborah Chu has been really helpful in that, so I was glad to see that things are looking up for her in her career. Marilyn Vargas and Patricia Rogers for their help in getting our certificates to have the trunk or treat. And there was also a plug about the candy wars, and those are really the favorite things. Maybe the parents at the end of the day aren't so sure about all the candy coming home, but it's all for a good cause, and lots of fun things at trunk or treat to be had for all the kids. The other thing we have coming up on the 17th, which is at Valley View, we have Friendsgiving. For those of you who don't know, what we do is we throw a lunch of pizza for all of the students and staff at Valley View. And it's a fun way to have just a time for the kids to relax and have a good time at lunch, let their hair down. And we don't want to leave Bayberry out of Friendsgiving, and we have a special event that we serve pretzels for all of the students on that same day at Bayberry. So they have some fun for Friendsgiving, but we're doing a little bit earlier this year. So thank you very much. That's it from WEF.
Thank you. Anyone here from CPEC?
Hi, Smita Saraswat, Vice President CPAG 110 Knightsbridge. We potentially have our Thanksgiving pie sale coming up, working on the kinks, short on manpower, and you all know what that's like. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any board member comments? All right. Moving on to comments from the public on agenda items only. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda item only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and municipality of residence. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by the participant to 3 minutes duration. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public.
Washington Drive. Is this okay? Hi, Danielle Amadeo, Washington Drive. Before I forget with my questions from the presentation, Patty, for the survey that goes out for buses, will you be, or I hope that you will be, letting families know what the alternate stop would be if they choose to give up whatever it is they have now? Because it's hard to know what to vote on if you don't know what the alternative is. So I just wanted to share that thought. I want to thank you, Patty, Dr. Glazer, and Mr. Turner. Is it Mr. Dr. Mr.? For bringing this budget issue to light to the community and speaking so frankly and with such clarity about it. I'm really grateful for that. I understand that this situation has been building for over a decade and that we have had ongoing budget issues for quite some time. But expenses that were not budgeted for or are under budgeted are not the result of something that happened 10 years ago. These seem to me like errors of oversight that happened in the past 12 months, like insurance costs. I saw health benefits up there, not budgeting for the ESY program that we do every year. So I know we had to work through a major transition period and a very challenging start to your time, and I'm not trying to place any blame, anything like that. I really want to commend you for this work and for sharing this with the community. I just want to say that I hope you are improving your processes around oversight as you plan ahead for next year. I have 3 questions on the presentation. Regarding the bond proceeds, I would love to know how much the annual total accrued interest is, and how much, so the total spent on the teachers and the deficit together, I think was in that presentation, but how long is that going to last us? How long can we keep these teachers? My second question, can you talk about some of the cuts to programming and resources that you've had to do in order to bring the deficit from 1.1 down to 700,000? And then my third question is, talking about planning for next year, what is the potential for tax impact? Because I know it was very clear to say that there would not be one this year. And how would that happen? Could that be done with the board vote? Is that a town vote? What is the process? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Ernie, do you want to answer that question, please?
I'll answer them the best that I can. All right, so I believe your first question was what programs were reduced, or where did we find the reduction in what the initial shortfall was going to be? Was that? Yes. Yeah, well, the interest earnings that we're going to have is only during the life of the construction itself. You know, as work is being completed, the amount of money that has to be drawn down actually will reduce the amount of the interest. And then we also have to be concerned with arbitrage. So we've done an estimate on what the amount would be for arbitrage. We've set that aside, all right, and estimated what we honestly think will be the amount of interest that we'll be earning. Now, the interest rate has gone up over the past couple of months, where it's about 5.2% right now. It was below 5% just a couple of months ago. So it'll be monitored, and the amount that we're anticipating as additional revenue is a good, safe estimate at this point in time. And that's why we're going to rely on that number at this point in time, taking into account all the other aspects of the use of those funds have to be considered. Okay, so I'm sorry, what was your second question?
We didn't make any cuts.
Yeah, there was no cut to programming. Again, you know, I tried to emphasize that about 85% of the budget is mandated expenses or contractual. All right, so we can't touch those. All right, so it's only the discretionary funds where we were able to take a look at it, and really, Mrs. Rogers should be given the credit for this, because she dove into this and really went into minute detail on this to see where there might be cost savings and rationing, you know, as we go forward as well too, in an effort to try and again address the issue that we have right now without eliminating or stopping anything. All right, so again, this was not something that affected any program. No, we reduced what was originally requested in the budget in certain areas. Discretionary. Yeah, discretionary, supplies, materials. Correct. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. No, please ask the question. I want it to be clear.
All right. All right.
Is this better?
Ernie?
Okay.
Mr.
I'm sorry,
Barbella-
were you done?
Mr. Barbella, you'll just give us a second, please, if you want to have a seat, and then let Mr. Okay. We're, until her questions are finished, that's all. Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, can we just address her last question? Okay. I'm sorry, what was it?
That's all.
Yeah. Well, the district has available to them.
No, Ernie, we're not going to discuss next year's budget right now.
Okay.
That's not, the next year's budget will be, it's in the process, as Mr. Ingracia mentioned, and so did Ernie in the beginning, that next year's budget, right now, they're in the process of figuring out exactly where those funds will be from, and they're working on it. So, right, so that question, neither Mr. Turner or anybody here can provide you that with accuracy, so any statements that are made tonight will not reflect next year's budget accurately. That's all.
To be
so we
determined.
rather.
Okay.
No, if an audience member happens to ask a question, they don't have a microphone, so Mr. Turner, can you just repeat their question for the people on camera so that they can hear it? I think that's what Mr. Barbella was trying to do there.
Okay.
Yeah, because they can't hear anybody at home can't hear
Yeah, sure. No, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Joe Barbella, Watchung. So the first question I had is on the $1.1 million deficit. It's mostly associated with 4 employees, right?
No.
And you said most of this is mandated. So were the 4 employees mandated by the state, or are other school districts also hiring the same 4 employees if they did not have them?
We cited 4 employees, but it goes further than that, all right, because there are other employees in the district as well, too. Mandated.
So this is new.
This was, you see, when the budget was being put together, you looked at the history of what was spent in certain accounts, all right? Now, the last 3 years, there was the pandemic, all right? So the history that was there was kind of skewed by the pandemic and the fact that there was additional federal funding that the district received as well, too. So when you look back the past 3 years, the historical record was skewed by that fact. So that now when that federal funding wasn't there, and I'll give you an example, all right? There are paraprofessionals, there are school aides, all right? Some of those were paid through grant funding. That grant money is no longer there. That now has to be absorbed into the general operating budget. So it actually increased those lines in the general operating budget because the federal grants weren't there any longer.
No, I understand that, but that applies to every school district in the state. So I guess the other school districts are also facing the same kind of deficit with the 1.1 million roughly, or respectively to their district. We didn't plan for it, I guess.
No, we didn't know what the full impact would be on something like this. Again, nobody had ever been through anything like this before. And I work in other school districts, all right? I did 4 school budgets this past year, and they're going through the exact same thing, all right? What we went through during the pandemic was unlike anything that anybody's ever faced before from a financial standpoint, all right? And so there was no way that you could predict or use history as an example.
So for full disclosure, I'm a former board member recently, and I disagree with you. I don't believe that this was unforeseen. I think this was something new, and that's fine. If you want to hire 4 more employees, that's fine. You can hire 4 more employees, but you know how to budget for it. So I don't believe this was something that was unforeseen to the extent that it's made here in the presentation. Respectfully, just disagree. Also, with regard to the $150,000 budget for the technology, if it's historically been paid by private citizens or grants, I'm not sure how you would not know to budget for it, because that would assume that...
Because it was never in a line item last year.
Because therefore you would expect the public to be paying
No,
the
sir.
same grant
No,
for each
you're,
time.
exactly. It was never put into a line item ever. So if any technology funds were received to the district, it was never
Of
in a
course,
line item.
because someone else
So-
paid for it.
No, so when we had a
We're-
turnover of, excuse me,
No,
give me 1 second.
go
1
ahead.
sec, you made your point, and it's
Okay, go ahead.
agree to disagree here. But many items that were in 2023, in 2022 and 23 school year, right? That's what the current, so.
I'm
we
not
had Mr.
following you.
Pepe-
I'm sorry.
We had Mr. Pepe leave.
You're not being
Wait.
articulate.
No,
Can
I
you-
agree.
can you explain?
I'm trying to explain it to you,
Go
so
ahead.
give me a second. In December, Mr. Pepe left. In
I'm
January.
aware. I was on the board at that
yes.
time.
So, and then we had Mr. Borgo. He resigned in January, right? Then we had 2 part-time BAs in the district. And within 2 months, not even 2 weeks, is when we were asked to create this year's budget. However, a lot of line items were not accounted for the year previously.
Understood.
And because they were not, you're assuming, yes, maybe the administration did, maybe many people did.
I'm not
and
throwing
it is what
stones.
it is. But
so
here
so
where
it's
we
associated
are,
with the transition then?
And
no,
there's one other
it's associated with exactly what Mr. Ernie is saying. He is saying that many of those items were substituted and by the CARES money, by a lot of funding that came, as you saw in the presentation, by the federal funding that was received
I
to
understand.
us.
That's fine. Listen, I don't want to get into a debate
That's
here.
$100,000 right
And,
there.
all I'm saying is I respectfully disagree with the 4 employees.
That's what I'm trying
Right.
to
It
address.
is
I'm
more than
so
4
sorry.
employees.
Right.
It-
Erin,
it-
can you put up the slide, financial
combination-
status increase in mandated
And
expenses?
because, and I'll sit down because I don't want to make,
Yeah,
a debate about this.
I just want to clarify, it's more than
hold-
just, I'm sorry.
If I can just ask. Again, the commentary as part of the presentation, which I'm sure was paid for by us, was that it was state mandated, right? State mandate required us to have this. So that means that it shouldn't be something that's unexpected. That means that it should be planned for. That means that the operations committee, which I was formerly on, should be aware of it. Now, if things happen during the transition, I completely get it. I'm not saying that mistakes don't happen. But the preposition that's being put forth is that this is natural, this is to be expected, that the 4 people had to be added due to state requirements, which I vehemently disagree with. That's my only point. Thank you.
And sir, if you look at the slide that Ernie created with staffing, it's more than 4 employees who weren't on the position control roster. You also had our SRO not budgeted. We had positions that were open, but because they had been unfilled and the interim people were unaware of that, used actual expenses. So those staff were not budgeted for. So when the openings were filled and Mrs. Rogers came, right, began to work in the budget, she was able to discover none of these things were budgeted. It's not that it was unexpected. They were unknown to the people who built the budget. We now, and Patty in particular has lived this budget, now see where these things were not budgeted and why, and where there were shortfalls and why. And Mr. Turner did go through all of this to explain it. Patty, was there something else that you
No,
were
I just
trying
wanted to point
say?
out that it's not, the 4 employees is probably the equivalent of $280,000 of the 800. There's a security resource officer, that's $3,300 outsourced. It's a combination, that's all I wanted to point out. It wasn't just 4 people that made up $800,000. Wanted to be clear on that.
How's everybody? Good to see you. Hey, you're still at it, Ernie, huh? I don't know if that's good or bad. Do we have monthly expenses, I assume, here, Ernie? Every month we run expenses, right? There's a run rate. I assume that gets looked at, right? I understand we got, congratulations. It's great that you're here, Dr. Glazer, and from all I can see, Patty's already working miracles, so that's good. But I'm trying to understand a few things. There was a pretty big crowd on this board, probably center stage there, finance chair, adamantly against a referendum. And now the money we borrowed for the referendum is actually filling our budget shortfall. Do I understand that correct, Mr. Turner? Okay. So we borrowed money so we could pay our current bills. Am I understanding that right, Mr. Turner? Right. And is that customary for finance committees to do of a board? No. What percent of referendum borrowings, of all the referendums in New Jersey, in your expert opinion, pay their operating bills from the interest earned? Yeah. Highly unusual. Is that correct? I'm not upset with anybody here. I'm just trying to make sure, you know. Now, we didn't really want that referendum at one point in time because it was going to raise taxes. And we have a board, there's a fair amount, really led by the finance chair, that got help from friends to tell senior citizens about not to vote for the referendum for keeping their taxes down. Right? That happened. Anybody could go anywhere. By the way, I'd argue we have some senior citizens on the board. Maybe that was probably the wrong approach. I don't understand how in the 10th month of the year this gets revealed. Because I don't really know how the board operates, but I assume it's not the first time. I understand Dr. Glazer's new, this isn't, but I think there's an accountability problem here. I think it's late in the game to be surfacing it. Mr. Turner, do these expenses get seen every month? So this wasn't, like it wouldn't have been the first time in October that we'd come to understand we got a run rate problem. That's what it's called, a run rate problem. Or do we not have a run rate problem? Patty, we have a run rate problem. Our expenses are higher than we planned for?
Correct.
Correct.
In some line items.
No, but in the bottom, how about the
bottom?
bottom line
Yes.
item?
Yes.
Right, right,
Yes.
right. I'm trying to get to learn about budgeting. We're talking about budget, 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 budget. Let's talk about run rate, and let's talk about how much we're behind what we expected to spend. And I'd argue that the private donations far exceeded the number you said, Mr. Turner. I could attest to that. I could attest to that, right? Doesn't really matter, right? So we have a failure of oversight. We have a failure of oversight. And I haven't heard one person, we've been here 10 months, one person say, I'm sorry, I'm accountable, it's my fault. I haven't. So I think there's a real issue here, an issue with integrity honesty, capability, and I think it sits right in the finance chair, finance and ops committee. So I don't know. We borrowed money to pay our bills to survive in the great town of Watchung. We had all talk about the beautiful town, so let's just not BS each other about the reality of this. It's been a run rate problem. Thank God management's brought it to light, right? Glad Ernie's here, but I don't know how you're gonna work out of it. And all those senior citizens' taxes that you were so concerned about saving, all of them. No HVAC, right? We don't want HVAC for our kids. We don't want stuff. Ran it into the ground without accounting for it. Should apologize to the families of the town.
Scratchy. No, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you to all of you who I know work very hard. You give up your time. I know many of you are volunteers. It's greatly appreciated that you, come to work for the school board in our community. I just had a question and wondered perhaps if not this evening, I don't know if you have all the background numbers, but perhaps you could provide them. Regarding the Bayberry solar panels, I forget the date that they were actually installed. It would just be great to have a little accounting when they were installed, what the cost of the install was, if you have a sense of the money that was saved in doing that project, and then what I know you're out to bid, but if you have a rough idea of what it's going to cost when you get that, of what it's going to cost to remove them. Are those panels themselves, do they need repair? Will they need repair? Quite possibly, or replacement, or was the plan to literally take them off and then put them back on? And what is the lifespan of those current panels? And is the roof itself, you're taking them off to do an entire roof? Is that a removal of a roof, or is it just a regular roof because it's not asphalt all over or wherever? If we could just get some facts on that. And what the lifespan of the new roof is, and at that point when you put those already aged solar panels back on, the on and off removal, do we have a sense of, is there any consideration that things will be damaged and those prices will go up? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening, Adam Kraft, Watchung. I know you didn't want to answer Danielle's question, but the way I understand it is the only way to effectively raise revenue is by raising the tax levy. We heard Mr. Turner tell us things that should not be surprising to anyone that's on the board who's been paying attention for the last 6 years. I know when I was on the board, we were all screaming from the rooftops that this was coming due to not taking the 2% years and years ago for multiple years to save a few dollars in taxes. So how do we close this deficit? We have to raise revenue more than 2%. So that's what the big thing that Amber didn't want to tell everyone. That's the only way to solve this, is to raise taxes more than the 2% that we're allowed to do automatically. You're going to have to bring this to the town and vote on it if we actually care about our schools. So I hope the board cares enough to do that and promote it as a whole, instead of what happened during the referendum, where we had a couple of board members say, not necessary. And to Frank's point, it was very necessary for more than one reason. So just want to throw that.
Before I ask my questions, actually it's not really questions, it's more comments. I did want to say, just to, I don't mean to like dampen the mood again, but my cousin, who is a teacher in Berkeley Heights, sounds like she went through something that sounds like exactly what this person is. I don't know who they are. And I know when she was going through all of her treatment, many of the teachers in Berkeley Heights did the same thing in donating their vacation time. And all of those teachers are indebted to my cousin or our family for that, and so however you can communicate it to all the teachers, like I don't know who they are, but they've got a place in my heart forever. First thing, just Dr. Glazer, appreciate and Patty, the update about the referendum site. I really appreciate the added transparency. The before and after pictures are really, like, I think helpful just to give like brass tacks of like, hey, this is actually what's been improved. So I do appreciate the time that was put into that. One thing I just did want to call out that, again, I don't know what we're allowed to put out on the internet, but it would still be nice to see some sort of like, cost forecast versus actuals versus what's left and how we're progressing towards using these funds. That was really, I think, the only thing from our discussion that I think, I mean, it would also be nice to see a little bit more detail of just start date or estimated start date, more about just sort of how the overall projects, I'm sorry, the overall referendum as a whole is. It's kind of hard to click through all the different sections. But again, appreciate the work that was done there. It's transparency and to what some previous commenters said, transparency is really, really important. One minor thing, the printed agendas were really helpful. I know maybe we're trying to save paper, and if we are, could we just like put like a poster board up with like a QR code so people can, it's just, sometimes it's hard to find the agenda. And then there was one other thing. I swear I'm just gonna be positive. Oh, okay, I found it. I guess, all right, so this is kind of a budget question. And again, I don't know if it can be answered, but I guess to the points raised, and obviously we're not talking, I know we can't talk about future budgets, but just from like all the numbers that I saw, which I'm sure you understand, but I don't, is typically for a school budget the most predictable, source of funding, and what we count on most of all is the taxes, I would assume. Like there's nothing, all these grants and donations and all that stuff, that's not stuff that we can generally kind of say like, oh, we're gonna get it for X number of years. I also understand how interest doesn't just last forever too, so that doesn't seem like a good thing. So really the thing we're struggling around here is the fact that we need a predictable source of funding that is going to bridge the gap to get our schools back to where they should be. So I hope you guys figure that out. Sorry, we'll be a little negative for a second. It does seem if the transition was that hard, and I've gone through this at work, you lose, we call it brain drain. A lot of people leave it all at the same time, and you're really kind of stuck. My understanding is that there's a member of this board who has a lot of experiences from the consideration of the ops committee and was not included on it. Maybe something to reflect on, maybe something to think about from a transparency perspective of why or why not they're being included, because maybe something like this could have been avoided.
Any other comments? All right, we're moving to action items. Ms. O'Donnell, can you please move action items for administrative action items, sorry.
Move A1 through minutes of previous meetings.
Thank you. Any comments? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Buccarelli, absent. Mr. Frage?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, can you please move personnel items?
Yes. B1, approve appointment non-certificated staff. Resolve the Watchung Board of Education upon the recommendation of superintendent approve the appointment of the following non-certified staff for the 2023-2024 school year. B2, approve student teaching. B3, approve revised contract. B4, approve mentor revised. B5, accept resignation. B6, establish the following district accountant position. B7, approve district accountant job description. B8, approve change of assignment. B9, approve leaves of absence. B10, approve donation of 6 days, sick days. And that's it.
Any discussion? May I have a
I just wanted to thank the teachers for donating all those days. It's beautiful to see that, and yeah. And it's great that the Bayberry and Valley View communities came together to help out an additional employee. So thank you all for doing that.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Buccarelli, absent. Mr. Fraze?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mrs. Murad?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Mr. Ingracia, can you please move operations items?
Yes, thank you. I move Operation and Finance Item C1, readopt the 2023-2024 budget. C2, approve payment of bills. C3, approve transfer of funds 2023-2024. C4, accept financial reports, board secretary and treasurer reports, and board certification. C5, approve transportation services agreement with SEESC. C6, approve service providers revised. C7, approve financing to acquire technology equipment. C8, technology equipment lease. C9, authorize submission of comprehensive maintenance plan and Form M1. C10, approve grants from WEF with thanks and gratitude. C11, approve carpool waiver form. C12, approve interlocal shared services agreement between the Watchung Borough Board of Education and Morris Union Juncture Commission for vehicle maintenance for the 2023-2024 school year. C13, approve transportation services agreement with MUJC. C14, approve transportation services agreement with SCESC. C15, approve professional development, school, travel, and related expenses.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call,
No,
please?
I
Oh,
have
sorry.
something to say.
Sure.
I understand we have to do what we have to do with the lease for the technology. It's just really disappointing that we pretty much have to mortgage our tech at such a high interest rate because no one seemed to pay attention to the donations that were provided every year that are listed on the agendas. And we even have one on there now from WEF. So, you know, we ordinarily would pay it out of our budget. Over the years, we haven't had money to do that, which is why donations have been so graciously accepted. But now we have to finance it at high rates, which is pretty much mortgaging our future. And I'm concerned about what we're going to do next year if we have to borrow this year.
Just to add on to just your comment, when Dr. Rovtar was here, she actually started the process, and we were at that time told that the organization that assisted us did not have sufficient funds to help us this year at the beginning of the year. That is why we're in this situation. So she did pay attention to it. She did try to reach out, and we had conversation as well.
Right, but donations don't stabilize the budget, right?
Right, that's
So
absolutely.
we can't guarantee every year that we're going to get donations. So
And-
we're going to have technology expense. So I'm not sure why it was such a surprise when we've accepted donations of that much, if not more, for technology, that nothing was prepared in advance for donations maybe not coming in again.
You're right. And that was previously told to, I guess, was never in the line item, and now moving forward, it is going to be a line item in the budget and accounted for as we move forward. That's something we're going to look into, right?
Yes.
As we're planning forward. May I please have a roll call?
Mr. Buccarelli, absent. Mr. Frage?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mrs. Murad?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. Jewett, can you please move curriculum items?
D1, approve Bayberry field trips. D2, approve Valley View field trips. And that's that for us.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Buccarelli, absent. Mr. Frage?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mrs. Murad?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Mr. Morales, can you please move policy items?
I move for first reading policy 1511, which is the Board of Education website accessibility. And I move for first reading to abolish policy 3432, regulation 3432, which is the old sick leave, and policy 4432 and regulation 4432, again sick leave.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Buccarelli, absent. Mr. Frage?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Morales?
Yes.
Mrs. Murad?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to board business. Is there any board business that anyone would like to discuss? I actually have a comment to make. Wanted to thank you all for the hard work that you've put into, just over the last week, actually even 2 months, in looking into our current budget. Our budget year begins in July. And when you're looking at shortfalls, you're not really looking at them in the beginning of the year. So when Mrs. Rogers started looking, and she really started looking at what the projection would look like at the end of the year, that's where things look different, right? Where would we be? And that's why we as a board collectively, we believe in transparency. And that's why, I understand there might be differences of opinions, but we're here for the children. And these are decisions, and they're not easy decisions, but these are decisions that we all have to make. It doesn't matter who comes in January or whatever happens. We all have to collectively think as a community, how do we move forward? How do we come together and support Dr. Glazer and Mrs. Rogers to really execute all the work that they are anticipating to do? Looking at our children every day, you see they have an incredible future ahead of them, and it sparks here. That joy, that initiative is seen through our teachers and our community. And I ask all of you to look forward and really, every decision that you make it in the best interest of the students. And I know that we've done that over this summer. I know that even though you see that there have been arguments in the public, but when behind closed doors, we will have our disagreements, but we do, every single board member has the best interests at heart when it comes to the students. And they ask the questions and they make those decisions based on their conscience. So I wanted to thank you all. And now I'd like to, especially Dr. Glazer. No, it is. They've worked midnights, and I can tell you because I've been calling her, and she's like, I'm still in the office. And you'll see leftover pizza sometimes in the day. So they're not eating the healthiest of foods, but they are. Yes. But they're certainly working hard for you. So please appreciate them as much as you can, and our staff and the board members that are sitting here, all of them. They do deserve at least the respect that they are working hard for a better future for this district. I'd like to open up the floor for comments from the public at this time. Are there any comments? Seeing that there are none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting has been adjourned.